Coming to you live from the NBC Tower in downtown Chicago, we have news on a developing story involving Sting and the WWE. Plus, what's the latest on Goldberg? WWE signing two big names and so much more. We got Wednesday Night Wars, we got WrestleZone Daily, and the boss is here. Don't embarrass me. From the heavens, let it be seen on every Twitter feed that bleeds. This is WrestleZone Daily. If you're on the podcast side, rate, review, and subscribe. If you're on the YouTubes, give it the thumbs up, smash the like button, subscribe. And if you're with us on Facebook, don't forget to share the link or you stink. We're covering the developing story with Sting in the WWE. Could something be happening? We'll give you the latest on it, and it may not be the story you want it to be. The latest matches coming together for WrestleMania, and of course, everything going on in the Wednesday Night Wars. We'll talk about all of it, but joining me is my boss, the boss man of WrestleZone, the one and only boss man, Bill Pritchard. Bill, how you doing? What a crazy time in wrestling. We're entering WrestleMania season, huh?
Yeah, it's starting to pick up. If tomorrow's any indication, it's going to be pretty crazy from now on out between the in-ring and out-of-the-ring stuff going on with the boardroom people. And yay.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get plenty of that tomorrow. So tomorrow we get the WWE fourth quarter earnings call. This is closing out the business year 2019 for them. That will be interesting as two executives left the company, George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, last week. We will hear a lot about their business. We got news today about WWE's business. We'll cover a little bit of that within the show. We'll also talk about the two big signings that WWE has that reported the Performance Center. We'll cover that in today's show and a lot more. But the rumblings were there kind of late yesterday, and they've been developing. But it seems like we have a better idea of what is going on with a man called Sting. WWE Hall of Famer Sting retired at the Hall of Fame in 2016. He suffered a very, very serious neck injury in a match in 2015 that nearly ended the match, and many people ended his career. He does suffer officially from spinal stenosis, but PWI Insider reporting that Sting was present with WWE negotiating some type of deal around Royal Rumble time, but apparently those talks have died down. What is the latest here on Sting, and could something actually happen? Because a lot of speculation is that, you know, he could be one of those legendary figures that they love to have when they go to Saudi Arabia Super Showdowns in just a few weeks.
I don't know if he comes back for a match. I mean, wouldn't Sting just showing up in Saudi Arabia be something for the local crowd? Like, I don't want to rule him out, because look what happened with Daniel Bryan and Edge. So never say never, but we don't know exactly where his health is at. He's also a lot older than Edge and Daniel Bryan, so that's a factor. But, you know, wrestling's favorite catchphrase is never say never, so we'll see.
You're absolutely right. Never say never. Now, Mark Henry, who I've heard say this several times recently on SiriusXM, says that he's seen him, and he looks like he's in great shape, and he saw him when they did the Fox premiere of SmackDown, and Sting was there. And had the full getup and looked great. You know, I also think makeup kind of protects your age a little bit in some ways, but you got to protect your neck, literally. You know, this guy had a very, very serious neck injury in the ring and had it at a very late age in his career and was only wrestling a couple of times. So that was the bad part about that injury. But as we saw with Edge, a guy that no one ever thought they'd see back in the WWE, he's back. And then the match, you know, comes up. Steven Chambers brings it up. It's been rumbling there for a while. You guys can get your text here with us on screen. If you're watching for the first time, shout out where you're from, get your text on screen. Everyone wants to see it. Sting versus Undertaker. Is it going to happen? The long sought after Sting Undertaker match. If you're doing a match for Sting versus Undertaker, do you do it at Super Showdown in Saudi Arabia, or do you maybe set it up at Saudi Arabia to go to WrestleMania? If you're going to do it. purely hypothetical. We are just throwing things at the wall. All we know is the PWI insider part of this. Kudos to them for looking into that. But it looks like it's not going to happen. But if it does happen, it's got to be The Undertaker, right?
I don't know. I mean, and I'm going to go back to the Edge thing again. Like, he's working potentially with Randy Orton, a guy that can protect him, somebody he's familiar with. Sting and The Undertaker never worked together. So if he's going to come back, wouldn't you put him with somebody that is going to take care of him physically in the ring? When, look at Undertaker Goldberg. Like, a lot of stuff went wrong in that match, whether you want to place blame or not, and it just was a bad matchup. I think if for any reason Sting's going to come back and it's not at Super Showdown, it's going to be a younger guy. If they want to just do a once-off, Undertaker's the right fit, just because that's kind of like, the two mythical characters from WWE, WCW. So, but I'd prefer, if he does come back, it be a younger guy.
You prefer to be a younger guy, but you know what the fans want. They want this match. They've wanted it for over 20 years.
We also don't know what the people in Saudi Arabia want, because let's be fair, they're completely different shows than the month-to-month stuff that they're running domestically.
Yeah, it does feel like it's out of canon. But I do think just because this one's so close to WrestleMania, this is the first time they've done one of these big budget Saudi Arabia shows right before WrestleMania. So I do think you're going to see some fans upset that they're going to see a match on there that has the billing and the marquee value of a WrestleMania. But there's a lot of money involved in these shows, and you just can't put out another run-of-the-mill pay-per-view. You got to put out something that has stadium value to it. And there is some potential that you could see Sting versus Undertaker. If they don't do the match, maybe there's some type of confrontation, which is, I think, creatively a good compromise. But like we said, we don't know if this is going to happen. The latest we've heard is that it's not. And I'm of the fact that if you have Sting versus Undertaker, Manuel Escudero, he is texting and saying, to hell with Saudi Arabia, make it happen at WrestleMania 36. WrestleMania 36, for all intents and purposes, tickets are moving really well. But if you really want a lot of old school fans to jump on the network and get back in there and watch WrestleMania on that Sunday, this is a WrestleMania match. I think you could set it up in Saudi Arabia, but I think you got to close it out in Tampa Bay.
And I'm going to say another factor might be Super Showdown is going to air on a weekday afternoon. It's going to be like 3:00 in the afternoon. You want to maximize your audience as much as you can. So
that's news cycle. You and I knows that you do something in the afternoon. I believe is it on a Friday or is it on a Thursday?
I think it's a Thursday this time.
So Thursday. Friday. So you get a 24/7 news. You get at least a 24-hour, the hard news cycle of reporting in terms of media going out worldwide. You do that sometime in the mid-afternoon Thursday. That pumps through a 24/7 news cycle internationally. That's a good bump up for WWE. And that would be strategic. And that's why I think you set something up in Saudi Arabia, you close it out at WrestleMania. Even I know a lot of fans are going to say you have two guys that are seniors in their age, right? In terms of wrestling and the injuries, we've heard about Undertaker. Is he the Undertaker of old? No, but he's still a very special character that I think fans still want to see live. Even if you're getting the hits from him, you're not getting a very dynamic performance. I still think it's a very special thing. And we saw that at Extreme Rules in a match that kind of cleared the card. Sting is a guy who even a month ago on the WWE Network, they did that Untold special where they talked about the match where he had the injury with Seth Rollins. He said he wakes up at night thinking, I still want that match with The Undertaker. Can they do something here? And if they do the match, once again, all hypothetical. We don't know if this is happening. Those of you just joining us, PWI Insider said there was some talk between WWE and Sting about doing something leading up to Saudi Arabia, and obviously speculation of WrestleMania. That's all we're going with. I would say you got to do Sting versus Undertaker, even if it can't be the match it was 20 years ago. The entrances alone, 8 minutes, let them go out there, play their hits, tombstone, go home. There's nothing wrong with, I think, putting one more nail in the proverbial coffin for Sting, and the man to do it is The Undertaker.
Yeah, I'm probably in the minority, or I don't know. If you're going to do it, let it be part of Mania. it's not going to be the attraction that it was 10 years ago. Like, I'm reading some of the comments in here. Robert Ray said, "The horse left the barn. It should have happened a decade ago."
What a phrase.
Like,
what a phrase. Left the barn.
I'm going to enjoy it if it happens, but it's not like I'm clamoring for it to happen. Like, I'm looking for other stuff. It's going to be more of an attraction, a spectacle as far as like their characters. It's not going to be a great in-ring match. We'll see where they go. I mean, if Sting comes back, we're obviously going to find out how healthy he is. He's healthy enough to take a couple bumps, but outside of that special that you just referenced, like, he hasn't been on TV in
years.
I think
2016.
Maybe a Hall of Fame spot here and there, but other than that, like, he hasn't been around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so plenty to see there. A lot of speculation. So if you're just joining us, that is what we know about the Sting story. Another story broke late last night with WWE Backstage, and they announced two big signees to the Performance Center. Note, they were not lumped in with a group of recruits that they usually do around this time of year. The past years they've done that, where they announce, here are the independent names that we've recruited that are in the Performance Center. You may or may not see them in WWE NXT or NXT UK in the next few months or so. These two names were announced exclusively by themselves. They are Timothy Thatcher and Killer Cross. Thatcher has been on the WWE radar for years now. Very big name in Germany and in Evolve, which is many eyes unofficially under the WWE banner in the eyes of many. Killer Cross, very big name in Impact Wrestling, was featured heavily there, has been a big name across the independents for quite some time, and had a lot of attention from All Elite Wrestling. He had offers from every major promotion that we know of that is out there right now. And we got to interview him last year when he was dealing with this long drawn out thing where Impact knew he wanted to leave and basically iced him and then waited as long as they could to release him from his deal. Now he is where he wants to be. His very public relationship with Scarlett Bordeaux. She is signed to WWE. She's been there for a few months. She has not been utilized much on television. She only had the cameo roles backstage on NXT. But he is in the Performance Center. And you have two big names join WWE NXT. Proverbially, that's where we think they're. I mean, we're assuming that's where they're going to end up. But what do you think here? Two big names for WWE.
I think most people expected Cross to end up in WWE. There was interest in him going there from them much longer than I think people will. Excuse me. Much longer than people might realize. Like, I think, if I'm correct, at last year's WrestleMania Bloodsport, like, there was guys checking him out there. So, I feel like it's the right spot for him. Plus Scarlett's there. They're the Killer Smoke show together. Thatcher's more, I don't want to say more interesting, but I guess more of a wild card, just because you always thought he was going to be that guy that stayed on the indies, and despite him working with Evolve, he never really showed an interest in going there. Like, So I'm curious as to what they do with him, especially with having, like Stokely, Walter, what they can do with him in NXT, what brand he goes to. I think it's safe to say both of them are going to go to NXT to start. Instead of it being, it's not a developmental anymore. It shouldn't be looked at as, oh, they're sticking them there to show them the ropes before they call them up. Like, NXT could use names if you're still looking at it as they're battling AEW every Wednesday. Like, they're going to need a name, and Killer Cross is an established name.
Yeah, and NXT, I don't think WWE wants that to get lost in the shuffle going to WrestleMania. I do see them pulling the lever off that. I know a lot of people thought, AEW's back on top of the ratings. When I look at moves like this, I see WWE looking at roster depth for NXT. When you're getting a Thatcher and you're getting a Cross, you're also getting two guys that look very different. Physically, these are large men. There is not many large guys in NXT in terms of the general sense. There are a few, Keith Lee, Dijakovic, Punishment Martinez is a deceptively large guy. People see him as more lean. But big men there, I think, stand out in a very, very special way because there's enough of them where they can have matches with each other where you get special dynamics. You've seen that with Dijakovic and Keith Lee. They got to do something very different. That match that they had that had got everyone going in October, November, I thought was special because it's two big men working a cruiserweight match. And you can get that out of Thatcher and Cross. I mean, the dynamics of a big guy who's over 6'3" and wrestling are not what they were in 2005 or 2006 or even 2013 or 14. You got to be able to work with everybody and do special things. With Thatcher, I don't have a full grasp of what his characters are like, but Cross is a guy who shouts WWE in terms of how he can carry himself on the microphone, how he can play a very, very pronounced, methodical, evil character. I'll say this. He's the next Randy Orton. He's the next Randy Orton. He's the next generational go-to heel for anybody in terms of being evil and despised and feared, and you want to see him fight somebody. The upside for me in this situation, I'm looking at Cross a little bit more than I'm looking at Thatcher. But Thatcher is also one of those guys where bell to bell, he's one of those, you're always going to get a great match from him. But those are the guys that always surprise you and develop a whole new shade of their character. I got to spoke to Flip Gordon today. Flip was always a fun character, but did something really cool with this new dark version, what he's doing with the Mercenary now in Ring of Honor. That interview will be dropping this week, by the way, in the WrestleZone podcast feed. So who are you more excited to see, Thatcher or Cross in WWE?
I guess because I'm more familiar with him, Cross, because everything what happened with him the past year with, Impact putting him on the sidelines, he was doing really good work before June or whenever they took him off after that first blood match. And then, he kind of got a lot of hype himself, like the Moxley video and the promos, and, he kept himself out there, especially, I went to see the Bloodsport in Atlantic City and he cut that promo, calling out Batista.
Yeah, that was wild.
I want to see follow up on that. Technically, it's a possibility.
I remember getting a text from you at 1 a.m. in the morning, being like, "Did you see this? Did you see this?" And you were all about that. He's a guy who knows how to move the needle, and I think WWE wants guys like that.
Mm-hmm. And he has TV time already. I mean, not taking away anything from Thatcher. I have seen him a few times live and on different streaming events, but he's more of an unknown to the broader audience. He has a hardcore following, but let's be honest, it's not going to be the same reaction on WWE TV as he's getting. I think the last time I saw him was at a GCW event, or maybe it was the Joey Ryan Penis Party last year. He fought David Arquette, which, it ended up being a pretty good match. It was just Thatcher torturing Arquette in different holds, and it worked.
James Espanto Fernando Tagahol, one of the faithful viewers of the show. Thank you so much. He says, Big Kev, Boss Man Bill. I love how we got that name over. What do you think of the nickname Boss Man Bill? Do you like it?
I like it.
You're okay with it. I'm indifferent. He goes, do you think WWE allows the smoke show on television? This is they've worked together as a pairing a little bit on the independents, and obviously you have a couple that's together in WWE. Scarlett's a hell of a promo. She knows how to get her heat. Obviously, she enjoys being a very, for lack of a better phrase, a very sexualized character, and she enjoyed doing that in Impact Wrestling, but left wrestling. I don't know if WWE wants to do that type of character, but if there was a television show where they wanted to go in that direction and do some testy things that break the PG bounds, which they've done a handful of times in the past years, though they still kind of keep things PG. If you want to go with and they're more of an R-rated act. They talk about how he's a monster and that she's the sexy devil woman next to him in his ear telling him to do evil things. That's a fun dynamic on television. It makes for fun vignettes. It shouts production. It shouts filming things for that. I would love to see them as a pairing in WWE.
Yeah, I think if you want to go that route, Raw seems more likely. It's Monday. They run an hour later. Paul Heyman's there. So you have those elements that would seem to fit their characters, but I don't know. It's hard to say how far they would go with it. I mean, I still think you could have like the Natural Born Killers relationship going, but I don't know if they're going to go that far with Scarlett as far as like the smoke show and some of the stuff she was doing on Impact. Like she's going to be a sexy character, confident, can hold her own in the ring. That's not going away, but I don't know how close they're going to, you're going to put your toe on the line or you're just going to run through it. We'll see.
We've been doing some big things this week at WrestleZone.com. Now, today we just put up an exclusive with Jim Ross, our very own Dominic D'Angelo, killing it. He is just absolutely killing it with some special interviews. We had Sean Spears, also from All Elite Wrestling. Both those are up for you right now in the WrestleZone radio podcast feed, and you can read the exclusives of what at WrestleZone.com. I mentioned Flip Gordon going to be coming to the website from Ring of Honor Wrestling. They have their big free enterprise show. So a lot of big things going on, but I do have to tip the proverbial non-existent cap. Here, I'm going to tip my knitted hat. I'm in Chicago. Tipping the knitted hat to you, Bill. For this best of the business feature. I know we have some more of these coming out, but these look into what's best for wrestling as a business in 2019 going into 2020. And we've gotten plenty of good response to this feature that's up now.
Yeah, it was like I put up on my own account. It was a few months in the making, and I had been talking with somebody about, an editorial feature that could be like a who's who for people behind the camera. And I think I kind of likened it to like what we thought the Warrior Award was originally going to be, like celebrating the business behind the business. And it kind of, snowballed from there. And we were looking at, who made the biggest impact. You can't talk about 2019 without talking about All Elite Wrestling. And
yeah,
I looked at some other people that made some headlines for positive reasons, and you'll see on the list, like Progress Wrestling hit 100 shows with Jim Smallman, and he went from there to now he's a producer with NXT, and Jimmy's Famous Seafood, all the work they did bringing awareness to leukemia and cancer, and how many different events they host that are wrestling related, and just kind of wanted to do something more positive that could be a regular annual feature on the website. There's enough negative news going around, and BS, we see it every day, but this was just something fun, and I got some of the people involved, so we're going to roll out some interviews probably this week or starting next week, and that's it.
It's a positive focus on good things in wrestling, things that no one can doubt are positive for wrestling, well beyond the scope of WWE. And obviously we talk about All Elite Wrestling and how much they've done to, I think, increase the value of a professional wrestler financially. I think wrestlers have more value to the promotions they perform for, and they aren't being taken for granted in a special way. That's what I would say is the best thing they've done for wrestling. But they've also given fans options. Let's get into that and go check out the feature. I read it in one sitting, and I was looking up things I didn't even think about. Mass Republic was one of the figures that you featured there, and I just loved it. You're going to learn some things maybe you didn't know, and stuff that you did know that you maybe forget about in the day-to-day of consuming everything at such a fast pace. I like that we can do the flash news, but we're able to also give you guys a little bit more depth, and all that's up at WrestleZone.com. But let's talk AEW tonight. A lot has been teased for this show. They continue to have a streak of ratings wins over NXT, and this begins the kind of few weeks of big hype to the Wintrust Arena in Chicago for AEW Revolution. It looks like we're getting Jon Moxley versus Chris Jericho for the AEW title. That seems certain. The eye patch will stay on, but I think the big feature tonight is going to be the 10 lashes that MJF will lay upon the back of Cody. This is a part of 3 stages of things that Cody has to do to convince MJF to have this revenge grudge match with him. This is going to be some violent, grisly television to see a man take lashes on his bare back in 2020.
Yeah, it should be interesting. I think I saw somebody before. The last time it happened like this was like 1994, where it was an actual lashing, but then Bully Ray just put up a photo and said, MJF, get your licks in. And coincidentally, it was when he whipped Flip Gordon last year, and like Flip's back was all torn up. And I was looking at that and I was like, holy shit, like he laid into him. And I'm like, it's probably going to look pretty bad tonight too. So it'd be interesting.
It's been a solid storyline, and Robert Ray mentioning that AEW is shooting for a very emotional show. It's going to be emotional to see someone take that many hits and not be able to respond. And also, there's just something visceral about lashes. It feels like old school regressive culture. The idea of someone getting whipped like that. So, do you think there? I mean, for lack of a better phrase, do you think there could be some backlash for that? I don't think there will be. But whenever there's something that could provoke a knee-jerk reaction, sometimes it gets one. Could AEW get one tonight? I don't think they will. But there's always a potential for somebody to get angry about something.
It's going to be, I think, a vocal minority, and I'm already kind of seeing that online before the show even airs about the connotations that, a public like display like this, even though it's in a wrestling setting, like the message it could send. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to say don't watch it, because I feel like, you're not gonna know when it's gonna air, but like, I don't know.
It's not that big of a deal.
If it's not for you, it's not like it's going to be a weekly thing where it's the guy's gimmick. It's literally building towards this match that really has. It didn't even start at full gear. Like, the breadcrumbs were there months before that. So this is like, 6 months at least where they're not blowing it off with a match yet. They're still going 3 more weeks until we get to the match. So I think it's fitting. So I'll expect a vocal minority, but I don't really have an issue with it. I mean,
well, we have some texting in right now. Brandon Stockton, dumb idea for AEW. Don't think it's that great.
What would you do different?
Yeah, what would you do different? And Matt Pessold saying, and Cody will yell, "Thank you, sir. Can I have another?" See, that's another thing is you're taking real lashes. There's no real sell here. Like, you have to put your hand on those ropes, get your back turned into rawhide, and just be like, there's be a lot of gritting of teeth tonight. How much teeth will be gritted tonight? A lot of teeth gritting. Chris Green saying maybe Cody gives MJF a chair shot to the head to cement complaints. I don't know about that. I don't know if we're going to see it. But
if anybody's going to enjoy selling an angle, like, it's Cody doing it. Like,
yes,
he busted himself open how many times since that started?
Yeah, and a lot of this type of angle shouts Memphis, shouts NWA, shouts the heel putting the baby face in peril, and amping up the reaction, and that crowd's going to be all behind Cody, and they're going to despise MJF. Also on tonight's show, Dr. Britt Baker will take on Yuka Sakazaki, and we'll see Jon Moxley versus Ortiz of the Inner Circle. Also an 8-man tag team match with the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Page of the Elite taking on the Lucha Brothers and the Butcher and the Blade. Another big night for AEW. What do you think of the general sentiment going into the Revolution pay-per-view here at the end of the month?
I think they need to maybe start building some of the undercard out, because they've banked on Jericho versus Moxley, which sells itself, but they don't want to get trapped where 2 weeks out, a week out, there's nothing going on, because I think it was either Full Gear or All Out where there was a lot of people saying like, hey, when are you going to add a women's match? Like, when are you going to add, what's going on? And it was based around 2 matches. I think it was All Out, because that was basically the title match.
Mhm.
And it was like, okay, when are you going to fill the rest out? So I don't know.
I get it.
It's
They've
a
also,
match card right now, and that's fine.
yeah, it isn't a fleshed out card. I would
But
say that for sure. But we're still 3 weeks out, so it's still like, I mean, if we're here next week and we don't know what's going on with the tag team titles, and we don't know what's going on with the women's championship on this show, then I'll have something there. But I do feel like right now this is a 2-match show, building to MJF versus Cody and Moxley versus Jericho. But I think AEW is in the position where even if people think, oh, they're beating WWE NXT in the ratings, they're still fighting for people to know who they are. There's still a lot of wrestling fans that are aware of them but don't watch. And I could say from going to a handful of AEW shows live, there's a lot of people still sampling the product. And what's bringing them in is Jericho and Moxley and a little bit of what they hear about on the internet. And so I think leaning into those matches, it isn't bad to go with these top 2 angles there. I don't want to be sexist either. I do think they don't have that female superstar that shouts, pulling in casual fans. They don't have one like that. They don't have a Ronda Rousey. They don't have a Becky Lynch right now.
I think they did, and she just got written off of TV. Awesome Kong.
Let's get into that. Awesome Kong last night on the episode of AEW Dark was kind of laid out by the Nightmare Collective, which most fans have not been fan of as a faction led mostly by women and kind of a dark turn. They already have a spooky faction in the Dark Order, so aesthetically people think it's confusing. Awesome Kong, though, gets attacked by Mel and Dr. Luther, and so Kong is on the shelf. A lot of people think this is because she's going to film another season of Glow on Netflix. The math kind of adds up there.
Yeah, I mean, I've said from the beginning, I thought they should have built around her star power. She's an established name. I get why they did what they did with, Riho, Britt Baker, but, Britt's already doing a heel turn. Writing Kong off the way that they did is fine. I mean, it's not like we don't know she's also on a TV show.
True.
But
they've never capitalized really on it, though.
I feel like, use her star power to your advantage while you have her, and also start the Nightmare Collective stuff. Like, I feel like, and I don't know her schedule either, but I feel like, maybe at least putting her in a title match, whether she wins or not, would have been better than just having her the way that they did over the past few weeks, because now she's gone. When she comes back, she's going to feud probably within the faction. But I would have set her up where she comes back, Glow's going to premiere in July. They're going to be building towards All Out. Like, use that.
Yeah.
You have a match made, you're going to draw in a different audience. Tony Khan said, hey, we'd be open to cross-promoting with Glow. Like, why not use it?
Yeah, especially now when you're in the thick of television, you need as much media exposure as you can get. Over on WWE NXT, tonight's show has quite a few things piled on here. We will see the Undisputed Hour vow to get their hands on Tommaso Ciampa. Hot angle. Adam Cole versus Ciampa is official for TakeOver Portland. The signature in blood that was not planned. What a fun organic moment. The Broserweights will follow up the Dusty Classic win. Charlotte Flair will be on NXT tonight, and she will answer Rhea Ripley's WrestleMania challenge for Ripley's NXT Championship. They're not calling it the NXT Women's Championship. I have to get used to that. So NXT gets a little bit of flair tonight. Could this be significant for them? This is another crossover from one of the other WWE brands.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight.
What show are you more inclined to? Does NXT have some things that are more interesting to you as AEW? Right now, I'm 50-50. I haven't really decided yet. I usually tend to watch NXT first and then I'll watch AEW later. But this one, I don't know. This could be another channel-changing night.
I'm leaning towards AEW. And the reason is, and I was, this kind of why I said I'm looking forward to tonight, because AEW has their show completely advertised and laid out. Matches, segments, the lashing, Moxley versus Ortiz. And NXT is kind of like, they've been very match heavy, promoting title matches a couple weeks in advance. And tonight it's Charlotte's answering a challenge, and then the Broserweights, and they're like, well, they're appearing. It's like
a lot of promo.
Very different show this week. So I'm interested to see how they lay out the show that's not announced in advance.
True. I think a lot of tonight is going to be finalizing that card for TakeOver in Portland in a few weeks. That is their next big thing. I do think it's unique that they had a show that is separate from another WWE main roster thing, or a quarterly pay-per-view. So they're not doing the TakeOver Saturday night, then another WWE pay-per-view the Sunday night. So this show stands on its own. It's in Portland. I think it's in a market where you have a hip crowd that enjoys alternative things. That is what Portland, Oregon is known for. And NXT being there as an alternative within WWE is a smart move. But this show is different. They've been so wrestling bell-to-bell centric in their 2 hours and have provided some incredible matches that I feel when I turn over to the other channel, I see some interesting angles. I see some fresh faces from All Elite Wrestling, but I feel the bell-to-bell on NXT has been better for me in the last month or so. That's just my take. But this feels like a really sports entertainment. Let's talk up a character. Let's cut a promo. Let's make a match. Not so much are you going to see a lot of matches tonight. But I do think that's something that fans of NXT have wanted more. They want the pot to sizzle a little bit more, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think you kind of have to strike that balance. Like, they're not going to be completely, match based. It is WWE. It's sports entertainment. It's Triple H. Like, I know some people want to see that, and that's fine. Like, NXT has done their own thing separate from Raw and SmackDown, but you still need to broaden your audience, grow it, bring in some of the casuals who, maybe they just only hear about, WWE has this other brand. What are they doing different? Okay, well, they also do stuff similar to Raw and SmackDown. Like, there's room for it. It's not like they're completely changing the formula. I get it. Next week's their go-home show, so I think they'll maybe do some more in-ring stuff, but, having Charlotte answer the challenge on NXT, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they actually get physical. I think that's a good draw for them because it's showing, NXT is being taken seriously as a third brand.
Yeah, it's being treated with some equal grace. And the fact that we're going to get, I think Charlotte's going to say yes. I don't think they're building up to something like this to not have her say yes.
I think it's a better match than Charlotte versus Becky is not a typical rematch because it was a triple threat last year at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But I think, building Rhea against Charlotte is the right move. If the rumors are true, putting Becky against Shayna Baszler is the right move. We've complained for years that WWE won't build stars. They depend on the part-timers, blah, 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 ad nauseum.
But here they are doing this.
Two big matches that they're setting up for the future.
With two fresh, big name people that you always want to see go up. So now you're getting the ascension of Rhea Ripley and Shayna Baszler at WrestleMania. And also, I know some people say, WWE, they cooled off on women in general. Look at these three matches you got potentially going on here. I mean, there's a couple there's going to be some odd gals out here, and we're going to have a women's battle royal, I assume, on WrestleMania. But if you're an NXT fan, you got to love the idea that Rhea Ripley will be on that card, and Shayna Baszler will be on the WrestleMania Stadium, Raymond James Stadium, 80,000 people card. That's a big, big thing for them. I don't think anyone should sleep on that.
Not at all. And we still don't know what's happening on SmackDown.
No,
we don't. There's 3 huge matches that we're getting out of this instead of, the typical, here's the Raw's women's match. Here's the SmackDown's women's match. We could have like 5 or 6 women's matches on this year's card.
Yeah.
The 3 title matches, Battle Royal, and then there's going to be another, at least another undercard feud.
That's nearly half the card. I mean, if you're doing like 11 matches at WrestleMania, 11 or 12, like they've done the past few years, that's a lot. A lot of people there. So plenty to get into and plenty to cover. Once again, we have all of this news at WrestleZone.com. Full coverage of AEW and NXT tonight. So if you're watching one and you want to know what happens over on the other show, don't worry. Get that phone out, refresh. We got Lavelle Porter on all of it as well. Thank you to the whole team there. We have a lot of hard-working people over the WZ banner. And as we get on the road to WrestleMania. So plenty to get into. It's very rare I get you on the show, Bill. So when you're here, you got to answer some questions. You got to get in the hot seat. Are we ready for the free-for-all, the fire off of the questions? We give full interaction, the most interaction for your action, the most question for your buck. All right, here we go. Fire off your questions if you're with us live now about anything in the world of wrestling, and we'll jump right into it. You can follow Bill Pritchard on the Twitter. Where do you go, Bill?
At bpritchard152.
Okay, and of course you can follow WrestleZone at WrestleZone.com. If you're joining us on all the YouTubies, we're developing that. We're getting the YouTube going. So if you're a YouTube person and you don't like Facebook, go over to the tubes. We're putting more content up there as well. So give us a follow. I do want to remind you, we do have the fast food Royal Yumble shirt. Did you get to see the Yumble? The ridiculous inside joke that you tolerate that I do on the stream here, Bill? Have you been able to see it?
I caught some of it.
Okay, and what did you think of the gobbledygooker taking home that big strap?
I'm a big fan of the gooker.
A big fan of the gooker. Yes.
Looking for Grimace, but I'm okay with the gooker.
You're okay with the gooker. You guys can watch that. It's on demand and our Facebook videos as well. Hopefully, we'll get that up on YouTube soon as well. Pretty ridiculous inside joke thing. And you can get the fast food Royal Yumble shirt with all the parodied fast food mascots. It benefits the Central Fire Authority of Victoria, Australia, and their great efforts for the Australian bushfire relief. Go check that out. That shirt is available on tpublic.com. Enough of the questions. Are you ready for enough of the plugs? Now it's time for questions. I got to slow down and let blood get to my brain, right, Bill?
Fire away.
All right, here we go. We brought up Sting and the Saudi Arabia situation, but obviously Goldberg and Undertaker had a match in Saudi Arabia that not a lot of fans were fond of. It was 105-degree heat. Someone got their bell rung. It was the most panned match of the year, I would say. Chris Green wants to know, are we getting a Goldberg-Taker rematch in Saudi Arabia?
I hope not.
I hope not as well. I don't think it'll happen.
Got his redemption already against Dolph Ziggler. He doesn't. They just need to stay away from that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, take a pass on that one here. James Ross says, any news on what's going on with Jimmy Havoc? He is in AEW, and he potentially had some type of physical fight with Excalibur some months ago around the Full Gear pay-per-view. We've seen a little bit of Jimmy Havoc on AEW Dark Television, but not much of him on Dynamite. What is his status, and what did you hear about this fight? I don't know. There's a lot of mixed reports about that fight.
So Tony Khan had been asked about it at the Full Gear post-show media scrum, and he said it was really not as big as it was made out to be. You know, from what I heard from other people, it just was kind of like a scuffle. It was guys messing around. Excalibur, I guess, tossed him out or whatever, but it never went any further than that.
Now, Bill, you're used to these questions. You have the last name Pritchard. How often do you get asked this? Are you related to Dr. Tom Pritchard? Are you related to Bruce Pritchard from WWE? How tired are you of answering this question?
Comes with the territory.
You're not related, right? Correct.
Different spelling.
Different spelling. It's okay. Stanley Smith bringing this up. Aja has recently been signed by WWE, but the report is that she's not been signed as a wrestler. She's been on the independent since 2013. She's performed well for the Shine promotion, but she's going to be signed as a referee. Is it a disappointment to have a new, fresh, independent name come to WWE only for them not to be in the ring, but to be a referee?
I don't think so, because they showed in the video she did the tryout as a ref. So, I mean, if you're a fan of her and you're disappointed, that's one thing, and I understand it. But she did the tryout as a ref, so I don't think it's a case of not wanting her for that reason. Maybe she'll get a chance and be an in-ring competitor down the line, but maybe they didn't think they could use her in that capacity. I don't know.
Michael Mahoney says the Monday Night Messiah of Seth Rollins is heating up. Hope it leads to more factions. Your thoughts? I think the change of Seth Rollins leading this heel faction has been one of the most underrated creative maneuvers by WWE, and Paul Heyman is at the top there. And obviously, I think Vince McMahon has a lot of influence over this as well. Vince McMahon. I think this has been a really, really cool thing. I like the idea of the wagons being circled in terms of trying to keep Seth Rollins from once again repositioning himself with the faction at the top of WWE. I think the idea of him as a messiah and his vision, and I know better than you, is a refreshing take on his character, and that's something that people do. They get famous, and then they have this unhealthy opinion of themselves. And Seth Rollins is there. I'm into it. I like them as a faction as well. I think it's fresh. The idea of them winning the tag belts and it not being the AOP, that's a surprising maneuver. There's a lot of surprises with it, and it's fresh, and also there's legs to it. It could go somewhere.
Yeah, I think lean into it a little bit more. They're making something out of Buddy Murphy. I don't want to put him down, but, people were like, oh, push Buddy Murphy, and putting him with Rollins is a plus no matter how you want to look at it. He's a former Cruiserweight champion, former NXT tag team champion, but putting him next to Seth Rollins, who is arguably one of the top 3 stars in the company right now, is a good move. Having them be tag team champions is a good move. So, yeah, I'd like to see more stables. I think if Rollins isn't going to get the CM Punk match like he told you, put him against this, build another stable for them to go against. Have a 4-on-4 match at Mania and make it fun.
We keep going back to that. We touched on that a little bit yesterday. November, right before he turned heel, we did the interview with him, and he called out CM Punk for a match at WrestleMania, and it was a pretty big day, simply because he did that, and I did not know he was going to do that, so it was surprising. I don't think that match is going to happen. If it does happen, I don't think it happens at this year's WrestleMania. But Seth Rollins, I think, is primed for a very, very big match at WrestleMania. I don't know what that match is going to be. I don't see him having those Raw tag team titles before WrestleMania. I think they're serving a storyline purpose, not a title purpose, So,
yeah, I hope it doesn't lead to the stable breaking up before then, because that you even alluded to it. Why didn't AOP get the titles? But I don't think they have the titles going in. It's just a case of who do you actually have beat them, because I don't really see a clear front runner right now.
Another question here from Big CG Chris Green. You guys going to check out the XFL this weekend? I'm going to get a little bit more in depth with this tomorrow, as we're just a few days out on tomorrow's show, our last WZ Daily show. We do them Monday through Thursday, but this is the first weekend of XFL. This is Vince McMahon's project that he has put a lot of money in. I believe the reported number we heard initially was $75 million. He's probably put a lot more into the Alpha Entertainment, which is a separate company. We haven't seen any hype for this on WWE television, and they've been very strategic. Obviously, I think you'll feel some WWE crossover in some way. It has Vince McMahon's hands on it. And it's being treated a completely different thing. Bill, you're a much better sports fan than I am. It launches this weekend. The hype is not nearly what it was 20 years ago for XFL, but they do have some really serious TV deals here with ABC, Fox, and I believe ESPN. Am I correct, or am I thinking of it?
I think there's 4 of them: Fox, ABC, ESPN, and NBC.
Yes. So I mean, you have a lot of channels to put this thing out there on, but is this going to move the needle? Is this going to be something that is special, or is it like their perspective with NXT? Yeah, AEW can get us in the first week, but we're thinking more of the marathon here. XFL is a real challenge. I think there's a desire for more football outside of the NFL season, but how many times has it happened? There was the USFL in the 80s. Some people wanted to see that grow. The Arena League, it's been dissolved. That was something that some people felt for a little while, and they tried the XFL, and some people laughed at it as this big joke. I think the XFL has a better shot at becoming something long term. It feels like it has a much more of a long term plan here. I don't know if it knocks any doors down the first week, but maybe by the end of the first season it does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the interest level is, because I'm not in one of those markets. Like,
No.
I think the closest team is New York, or like there's no Philadelphia team, so I don't really hear anything locally. I hear more about the St. Louis and Seattle, like Houston. DC is the closest team. Sorry. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're looking at it geography, but whatever. But I'll check it out if it's on ABC or NBC. If I'm around, I don't really even like. I don't have an interest in a specific team just because, like I said, there's no local team here. But I th- I think if they market themselves as just something complimentary to the diehard football fan and something alternative to people who are sick of the way the NFL is going, they're going to be better off. And instead of being the extreme football league, if they're just offering
Extra football.
extra football somewhere where these guys that don't have a shot at the NFL could go and play, like, it sounds like they have a better infrastructure this time. And like you said, it's not really dependent on WWE right now. So
No. And I do think in the long run, that separation of branding, of treating it as, yeah, I'm Vince McMahon, you know me from WWE, and I've done the XFL before, but I think this is more, there's a desire for something else in football. That note that they're hitting in terms of the videos and the digital marketing that they've put out, I think that rings true. I think there is a desire for a faster game, a game that flows quicker, a game that pays attention to not letting the game drop every 25 seconds, which I think is a problem when you watch the NFL and even when I watch the Super Bowl. And I think why it's a game that's been, for lack of a better phrase, it's been corrupted by the idea of being made for TV. You can always stop and analyze it, and then advertise it. And then there's the NFL acknowledges that fantasy football is a big thing and that gambling is a big thing. Here's a league that's saying, like, yeah, we want you to do it, and here we're going to help you do it. But I don't think they have notable players in a big way. There's no big name player in the NFL that isn't on a team that's going to this league. That shouts, hey, I got to buy a ticket for that. But I do think, just like we see people say every year around bowl season, that, wow, college football is so much more entertaining than the NFL games. I think some of it has to do with speed. That you look at the rules of this, they lay into speed and presentation and fantasy football and interaction, things that are very, very modern and things that NFL is getting around to doing. But I mean, I think there's the rule changes I thought were the most interesting thing. The idea of an overtime concept, almost with a shootout, if you will, I thought was very intriguing. You're going to have to educate fans that are just tuning in for the first time, but it has a shot. It has a shot, I think, more than the XFL did again before, because the circumstances are different. Live sports are much more desirable by media companies. They will give it more breath to run here than they did before. But the Alliance of American Football couldn't even finish a season. So the odds are still against them, but I think the odds are better this time than maybe they were, simply because you don't have the hype of WWE around it, or at least you have less of that. Is that fair to say?
yeah, I'm going to be paying attention to how they can innovate and push the game forward, because if you remember the first time around with the XFL, they did some really cool stuff. Most notably, I don't know what it's called, but the camera that went from sideline to sideline on, like, the line.
Yeah.
Like, the NFL uses that. And my wife actually pointed it out when we were watching the Super Bowl. She's like, "Is that a drone?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, it's a camera. It's on like 4 different pulley. It's on a pulley system, and it just runs from all different ends. And she's like, "No, she was like, that looks like a drone. It's like moving so freely." I'm like, "No, I was like, that's from," and I was like, "That's from the XFL." I'm like, if they can hang their hat on anything, they gave the NFL a new way to film the game. So I'm really curious to see what else they can do in that aspect as far as presentation. Like, I just read somewhere today where I think the networks are going to be putting, like, the betting lines on air graphics. So
You would never see that in an NFL game.
Yeah.
You would never, ever see that.
People always thought it was, the networks doing it, and it makes it look more like this was the NFL enforcing it. So I think embracing betting, it's not going away. More states, more areas are legalizing it more and more. Embrace it. You're going to attract that fan. You're going to attract the fantasy football fan. So if you want to add some stats like that in there, push the game forward. Don't try to be an NFL clone.
True.
You'll find your audience.
Jonathan Parchman texting here saying the innovation that they need to bring to professional football is a game inside a hell in a cell. They're going to fight inside a 16-foot high steel cage. No field goals because you can't escape the cage. So I knew that was going to happen. Yes, this is the XFL and the Vince McMahon voice for sure. We'll follow that this weekend, and we'll keep an eye on it at WrestleZone.com. Bill, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate the time. Hopefully we get to have a couple of beers down in Tampa Bay around WrestleMania season. All right. And once again, check out the best of the business feature we have rolling out here on WrestleZone.com. Once again, when you're watching Wrestling Tonight, NXT, AEW, maybe watching XFL, I still want you to do this one important thing, and that's enjoy wrestling.